My lords, it's a very great pleasure to follow the noble Lady Baroness Hayman, who's doing such spectacularly fine work personally and through Peers for the Planet, of which I'm also a member. And I rise to move amendments 4 and 10 and speak in favour of all the others of this group. Now, the noble Lady Baroness Hayman referred to the important report released yesterday by Onward on green jobs. I've scratched out a lot that I was going to say about that, as the noble lady covered it comprehensively, but it is worth restating the conclusion she highlighted. Net zero, the government's legally binding target, is not deliverable without a massive increase in relevant skills. Now, speaking second in this very large group, the noble Lady Baroness Hayman, having outlined the detailed structure of her amendments and others yet to explain theirs, in the interests of time, I'm going to speak generally to express support for all of these amendments, many of which I've attached my name to. And I particularly thank the noble Lady Baroness Sheehan and the noble Lord Oates for their work that I've stepped behind to support. And I'd note particularly the amendments 3, 9 and 25 in the name of the noble Lady Baroness Hayman, which have attracted broad cross-party and non-party support, including from the government benches, to which I would have had attached my name had there been space. Then I'll get to the detail of the 2 amendments 4 and 10 that appear in my name. Now, these amendments, all in different ways in different sections of the bill, seek to mainstream attention to the climate emergency and biodiversity crisis in the skills agenda in every community. I'm using that word mainstreaming because where we are today is reminding me very much of the mid-1990s when I was working in international development. There was a great debate then when bodies like the World Bank and the IMF had discovered the importance of women to societies and even, yes, shock horror economies. And the great debate was whether to separate women's programs or whether women's issues, concerns and rights should be put into every program. It feels like in terms of the environment, we're somewhere in that stage of debate now. We've got a situation where recent finance bills, which finally included, after lots of hard work in your Lordship's House, at least climate emergency, but its lack and that of the biodiversity, in fact, our busting of planetary boundaries in multiple directions, in this bill is a demonstration, I'm afraid, that the government still really doesn't get it, which is particularly disturbing for the chair of COP26. So I was thinking about this group and wondering how I might help the government to understand and to build that understanding into action. I thought about that magic phrase, the economy, how often we hear from the government, everything needs to be done for the economy. So I want to suggest to ministers and civil servants that every time they hear themselves saying that phrase or thinking that thought, that they put the environment in front of it, acknowledging that the economy is a complete subset of the environment, that every single element, every penny is dependent on the air we breathe, the ground we rest on, the soil and water that produce our food. So when we're thinking about local economies, we need to be thinking about local environments and to complete the set, an understanding that communities, people individually and collectively, and their well-being are the foundation of our economies. This is systems thinking expressed in concrete terms. When will we know we've succeeded? Well, when we no longer have large groups of amendments like this introducing climate and other environment goals into bills. When we move on to strengthening what the government's proposed, then we'll know that some progress has been made. I've been talking in abstract terms, but just to think briefly about the practicalities of the skills needed. Food growing is one obvious and much under-considered area for climate mitigation and adaptation, looking to the urgent issue of food security. Home energy efficiency. I've referred previously in your Lordship's House to how the building industry is frantically wondering where it will find the skilled staff it will need should the government finally manage to sort out the funding in this crucial area. Engineering for particularly public transport schemes, another huge area of shortage. So I turn now to my specific amendments, first 4, which adds "and biodiversity" to the already excellent Amendment 3, not in any way a criticism of it, but a friendly strengthening amendment, reflecting the way I'm pleased to say that many other amendments in this group already include biodiversity with climate. And then to Amendment 10, which appears in my name. Now, I'm not, I would say, confident that the way this is currently worded is the best way, referring to specific regulations. For what I'm talking about is particularly broader. But I chose that wording to stress the way in which this bill needs to fit with other expressed government aims. I quote the Noble Lord, Lord Cullinan, from the Grand Committee debate on the regulations referred to in this amendment. The Noble Lord said, and I quote, "Eco-design policies have also included resource efficiency measures, which seek to make products more repairable and recyclable, thereby reducing their use of material resources," close quote. And a further quote from the Noble Lord, "A wider range of spare parts and helpful information will be made available to professional repairers, which will facilitate even more complex repairs to be carried out by people with the right skills to do it safely," close quote. Yet, my lords, I doubt there's anyone in the House today who hasn't had personal experience of how hard it is to find and secure the services of such a professional repairer. To take one recent case study I know of, someone who sought from a fairly high-end manufacturer a repairer for a washing machine. The first available appointment was 10 weeks after the call. Now, what we're talking about here is fairly obvious environmental measures. So you might say they're covered by the other amendments in this group. But I think we need a specific focus on the need for repair skills, something that's essentially almost entirely disappeared from our communities. We should see, as we've seen happening in some communities and some places, local repair shops practically on every street corner so that people can go to them and get things fixed. But that's going to require a huge injection of skills. So I'd very much welcome further discussion on the best ways to structure an amendment like this. But a clear direction of the need to build repair skills needs, I believe, to be a distinct part of this bill. I beg to move.